Simardone joins us now for more on this. Aidan, how long is this likely to last? Does Iran have the wherewithal to withstand a protracted onslaught from the combined forces of Israel as well as the US? And maybe to that, are Gulf region states likely to join in on this in retaliation towards Iran?
This is going to last at least 4 to 5 weeks. That's what Donald Trump has said when he says that he is trying to give the most optimistic scenario. As we know, Trump lies all the time. He wants to make things seem a lot better than they actually are. No, this is a war we're talking about. This is one that Iran has every right to defend itself against and has the capacity to do so beyond this period of time. An exact estimate, I don't know, at least months, something along those lines. Whether Gulf states will join in, I mean, can they join in? We're already seeing Iran, for instance, hit the United Arab Emirates really hard. That country is already running out of interceptors. I don't think these Gulf states are quite tiny. I don't know if they even have the capacity to join in and attack Iran, even if they wanted to.
Yeah, and interestingly here is that Trump seems to have changed his tune around the pretext of this, right? We know that at least by Thursday last week that a deal had been reached. Is there any room for that deal to be back on the table? That is to say, Iran letting go of its nuclear stockpiles, of course, only to an enrichment of 6%, which the Americans contend is too high, and the Iranians said they're willing to convert that to irreversible fuel.
Forget the nuclear deal. You know, as we saw just before I came on, there was 160 girls that were massacred by a American or Israeli attack. I would probably call that terrorism, for instance. And so, you know, Iran does not want to come to the table, and rightfully so. Iran, the last time they came to the table, they had their supreme leader assassinated. They've had schools and hospitals bombed by the United States and Israel. So, you know, can they come to a deal? Not anytime soon, and rightfully so. Iran should be protecting itself because the United States has shown that it cannot be trusted when it comes to deal making.
Yeah, there's a perception by the Americans that there would be an ideological shift with a new successor, and it seems that Donald Trump is trying to dictate who the successor should be or should not be. How's that likely to play out?
Getting a successor, you know, this would be like, I don't know, the United States trying to declare who the next pope would be. They have no power to do so. You know, despite everything going on in Iran, the mass protests we saw a couple months ago, the Iranian government is actually extremely strong. You know, we saw, for instance, a recent report that during the protests, there weren't actually any members of the Iranian military that, for instance, actually joined the protesters, defected, however you want to call it. The Iranian government is very strong. So the idea he can choose as many successors as he wants. He could choose Kanye West. It doesn't matter who he chooses. There is not going to be any successor. Iran is still the one that's in control, and Iran will be the one that continues to be in control. Even if they were to get rid of, for instance, the highest members of the government, as they did with, for instance, the Ayatollah Khamenei, even if they were able to do that, Iran has successors, and Iran is able to operate and can carry out the fight. You know, this is another Afghanistan, another Vietnam. There won't be any successor chosen by the United States. I'd put my money on that.
Yeah. Does Iran have the capability to make this unaffordable for the US by continuing, of course, to frustrate any sort of supply chain and logistics movement through the Strait of Hormuz? Or is Venezuelan oil America's stop loss?
That is a really good question. So the costliness, I think right now there's a website that tracks this. I forget the exact name. I believe it's done by the same people who do APAC Tracker. The war is already costing $1 billion. We saw, for instance, even just one day, 3 F-15 fighters over Kuwait being shot down, whether that's friendly fire, although I don't believe that. Those cost $90 million each. You know, in total, we're looking at $270 million just from that. That's enough to cover 10,000 Americans' healthcare for one whole year. Iran has absolutely the ability to make this very, very costly. And I think you have to also look at, for instance, of course, we mentioned the Gulf states at the beginning. All these countries are going to start to run out of interceptors. There's a limited stockpile, we're looking at days, most optimistically a couple weeks. Iran can keep firing these very cheap drones, and the interceptors will continue to be used against that. And eventually they're going to run out, and that'll give free rein to Iran. We're seeing, for instance, even today, although it might just be a rumor, possible run of the banks in the United Arab Emirates. And we're also seeing U.S. soldiers that are being killed in order to protect Donald Trump and his class of people. Now, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, yes, they're actually, it seems that they are already closing that. I guess there'll probably be a couple ships that get through, but really, you know, even just the risks of this, there's going to be a lot of companies that are just not going to risk it and not go through it anyways. Hence, we see the price of oil going up. Now, when it comes to Venezuelan oil, I mean, you know, there's a lot of talk about this, and sure, Venezuela might be able to help out a bit. Venezuela has heavy crude oil for the most part, and it takes a long time to get this developed. Even conventional reserves of oil, you know, getting this online and getting deliveries going, all those logistics, that's going to take time. The United States is not going to see relief when it comes to oil at the gas station and prices that Americans are paying. This is going to be something that's very costly for everyone. Unfortunately, it's going to be most costly for the Iranian people, of course.
Aidan, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. Aidan Simardone joining us there from Canada. Well, of course, we will continue with our coverage and analysis of the ongoing war in the Gulf region.